49-year-old William Ray Porter was shot 3 times in the head. Ray Porter was shot in the head multiple times on March 1st, 2010.
A sensational murder with shocking twists and turns.
And as soon as I come around a corner, he just started to turn his head, and I just went like this.
William Porter was inside his Baltimore County gas station last Monday when the longtime owner was shot.
It was black, and he just come in the side door. I went out, and I came in, and he... Okay, you said a black male came into the side door.
Baltimore County Police soon discovered what they thought was a much more elaborate plot.
And now a gas station owner's grieving wife is arrested.
In the days to follow, we were led to a scheme involving Miss Porter.
The evidence overwhelming, the deception remarkable.
There's 2 different faces to Karla Porter. She's the cold, calculating one that she thinks nobody's looking at.
No one thought that she was really going to do it.
I was just so tired.
She claims that Ray came home one day with dog feces on his shoes, wiped it on her back as she was cleaning a rug that he had already messed up.
And none of us had any idea of this. None of us. And that's the truth. She's a very manipulative person, very devious.
Today I want to talk about Karla Porter. It's hard to know what to believe with this case. There was a guilty verdict, but then an appeal was granted, so there's going to be a new trial. We don't know exactly when. And some people think Karla was an innocent victim who basically just did what she had to do. Other people think she was a master manipulator who was able to get everyone around her to do what she wanted them to do. So I want to do what I usually do on my channel, which is I want to give you guys the facts. We'll discuss the theories and then you can decide for yourself. This video is sponsored by Confessions of a Rebel. Confessions of a Rebel is a niche perfume brand that celebrates the spirit of rebelliousness. They source real ingredients and they source them responsibly. They also work with small farms that are locally owned and practice responsible farming. They mix traditionally masculine notes with traditionally feminine notes, so they get very original fragrances. Get a Room is really good. I've tried this before. I've really liked it. It's got like vanilla and apple, but then there's a little bit of sage, which gives it this earthiness, so unique. They sent me one that I'm dying to try. It's called Love High. And the notes are peach nectar, orange flower, jasmine sambac, sandalwood, and apple. It says it's traditionally feminine, but men love it too. Oh my God. So bright, juicy, like a sparkling fruit. And then there's like... that must be the jasmine. There's a warmth and a floral, but not too strong. It's still very fruity. Oh my God. This is my favorite one so far. This is my favorite one. So for the summer, you guys, I'm not kidding. Love High, Confessions of a Rebel, my favorite one so far. I think I might need to use my code on this one. I do have a code. Noor Jasmine will get you 20% off a fragrance. So act now, confess later. Thank you guys for sitting through that, and thank you to Confessions of a Rebel for sponsoring this video. Am I a fragrance person now? I think I'm a fragrance person now. So the whole thing started on March 4th, 2010 when Karla called 911.
It was black, and he just come in the side door. I went out, and I came in, and he... Okay, you said a black male came into the side door.
Karla basically said that she had never seen this person before, that this person came in while she was outside, like putting the, you know, the prices, the numbers in the gas station. So she's putting in the new numbers, and this person goes in and shoots her husband and runs away. And keep in mind that her husband, Ray, is using crutches on the time. He's walking with crutches. When police arrived, they found that Ray was dead. He died immediately because he was shot multiple times in the head. Karla and William Porter were known in the community. He was known to everyone as Ray. So Karla and Ray, they both owned this gas station for 15 years. It was like the local gas station. A lot of people in the community went there, so everybody knew them, and they were married for longer than that, I think over 20 years. And so when Ray was shot at the gas station, it was a huge deal, and Karla, according to everyone, was shocked and devastated. Quote, She was crying. She was shaking, said family friend John Scharf at the time. Reports from the Baltimore Sun say Karla Porter passed out bookmarks and wildflowers in her husband's memory at the viewing. And she even handed out a letter allegedly signed in his name stating he'd like his organs donated. The note included moving lines of poetry. If you must bury something, let it be my faults, my weakness, and all prejudice against my fellow man. Friend Jeff Barnes said, her eyes were just dead to the world. I could see that she was distraught, or what I thought was distraught. Maybe she was more concerned about being caught. In hindsight, you wonder. So, at Ray's funeral, as if out of a scene from a movie, police come in. There was some sort of dispute at first between the Porter side, like Karla's side of the family, and then Ray's side of the family. Police show up and they arrest Karla for Ray's murder.
Now, a gas station owner's grieving wife is arrested. They say Karla Porter's arrest at her husband's funeral made matters worse.
I knew it was something going on. The police officers were there and her sister was crying, and it was just terrible. I knew something was wrong.
It turns out that the day of the shooting, someone went to police and told police that Karla had approached them and asked them to kill Ray.
We were led to a scheme involving Miss Porter.
It says Lieutenant Robert McCullough of the County Police Department said, we had a witness that came forward on the day of the shooting who indicated to investigators that she, Karla, had approached him or her to recruit that person to kill her husband. Karla said she was having marital problems and that her husband was abusive. Karla claimed she could lure William to one of their properties where the witness could, quote, bang William. Police say the witness interpreted that statement to mean she wanted William killed and she wanted the witness to do it. Karla suggested the plan in December 2009. Remember, Ray was shot March 2010, so just like 3 months before. But the witness refused to take part. On March 6th, the day of the funeral, police say Karla again contacted the witness and offered money to keep her earlier plan quiet. She was arrested shortly after making the payment. So now there was a whole new element. First of all, it's like, whoa, Karla did it? But then it was like, wait, but was Ray abusing Karla? So police end up bringing Karla in for questioning. And at first, she denies everything, but then they get her to admit that she paid someone to just beat up Ray. Not kill him, just beat him up. When asked why, she said she was tired and he was being really mean.
Porter says Ray controlled every aspect of her life.
That she suffered from severe depressive disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder.
I was just so tired.
He assigned her jobs, such as starting his car every morning at 3:30 a.m. Her consistent answer, I was afraid. It was easier to do what he wanted. I didn't want to cause any waves.
Karla said, quote, I just wanted someone to hit him for me. I didn't want any of this to happen. I really didn't. He was just being really mean. The detectives say, we're not stupid. She goes, everybody told you how wonderful of a man he was. I didn't want you to know that he hit me and stuff sometimes. Basically, Karla was telling anyone and everyone that Ray was abusing her, and she was essentially begging people to kill Ray and that she would pay them. It all goes back to 9 months before Ray was shot. It was June 2009 when Karla approached her daughter Megan-in-law's boyfriend, Daniel Blackwell. She asks Daniel to kill Ray. She offered him money. And at first he seemed like he was interested, but he never actually followed through.
He is the former boyfriend of Karla Porter's daughter, Megan. It became ridiculous and annoying. He said that Karla Porter kept asking him to kill her husband, saying, how much would it take just for you to kill him? Would $10,000 do it? He took it as a joke.
Then, several months later, December 2009, so just 3 months before Ray was shot, Karla asks another person to kill Ray and that she will pay them. This person is Tony Fales. Okay, remember this name. Tony Fales going to factor in later. So Tony says he was never going to do it, but he didn't tell Karla that. Instead, he says he told Karla, okay, like, I'll look into it. I'll ask around, essentially. But he never actually asks around. He never gets back to her. But Karla keeps calling, sometimes several times a day, to see if he found someone who would kill her husband. It says here, quote, Mr. Fales never made any phone calls on Miss Porter's behalf. Miss Porter stopped calling Fales towards the end of January 2010. In that same month, Miss Porter contacted Paige Human, who had lived with the Porters in 2007, about obtaining potassium cyanide so that she could poison Mr. Porter. So at this point, it's 2010 and Ray's still alive. Karla hasn't found anyone to kill him yet. She's pretty much asking anyone and everyone. And then she talks to her nephew, Seamus Coyle. Seamus, how do you pronounce Seamus? Hold on. How to pronounce Seamus? I feel like it's Seamus, but I'm not about to say Seamus and have you guys drag me.
Seamus.
Why is she saying it like that?
Seamus.
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 Seamus. Karla admitted that she met with her nephew, Seamus Coyle, and her nephew is the one who introduced her to Walter Bishop, the alleged gunman. This was around late January, early February 2010, so like about a month before someone shoots Ray. Karla was going to meet her nephew, Seamus Coyle, to give him some money for something at a Walmart, like in the parking lot. In the car, though, is Seamus's friend, Walter Bishop. So it says here, quote, Bishop was seated in the passenger seat of the vehicle that Coyle was driving and volunteered to kill Mr. Porter after listening to Miss Porter describe Mr. Porter's abuse of her. Coyle testified that at that point, Bishop exited the vehicle, walked toward the rear, and had a conversation with Miss Porter. Coyle remained in the vehicle but overheard something about $500, and it was his belief that telephone numbers were exchanged. It turns out that Walter Bishop really needed some money. He had 5 kids and he was on child support. He was struggling to pay the child support, so he saw this as like a win-win where he could pay his child support, because she apparently offered him $9,000, but she was going to pay him $500 up front or something like that. And he felt like he was going to get rid of this bad guy who was doing this horrible thing, as well as make money to support his kids. So, you know, he felt like he was doing a good thing, supposedly. So they bring Walter in for questioning, and he basically tells them everything.
Right here, kind of angled towards that direction on his crutches. And I could tell he was looking at Karla, and when she said, "Can I help you?" and as soon as I come around a corner, he just started turning his head, and I just went like this.
According to Walter, this was a conspiracy. Karla, her sister, her brother, her nephew, his friends, all of these people were involved. At this point, things start to happen very quickly. It's a month before Ray is shot, and the first thing that happens is that Karla's sister, Susan Dada, gives her a gun. This gun would end up being the murder weapon that shot Ray, but we'll talk more about her sister later. So now it's February 28th, 2010, the night before Ray is shot. Karla and Walter speak on the phone. According to Walter, the plan was that she was going to tell him when Ray was there, he was going to pull up, shoot Ray, and leave. And that was it. The plan was for this to happen in the wee hours of the morning, where there would be little to no witnesses. So what ended up happening was Ray got a call at like around 2:30 a.m. Is that correct? Yes. Karla tricked Ray. What she did was she used her cell phone to call the house phone. So the house phone rings at 2:30 a.m. They're asleep. She picks up the house phone, right? She called it. She picks it up. Whatever, hangs up. She goes to Ray. She tells Ray, who's like groggy, sleeping, because he's supposed to be at the gas station at around 4:30. This is at 2:30. So she tells him, "Oh my gosh, I just got a call from the security company. The alarm went off at the gas station. You should go there and check it out." So Walter's like, "Oh, not Walter, sorry. Oops, I'm getting confused. Ray." Ray's like, "Oh," he gets dressed up and he heads to the gas station. After Ray leaves, Karla calls her brother. Yes, her brother's in on it too, turns out. Her brother is Calvin Mowers. He's in on it too. I guess he felt like this guy is beating up his sister. So he ends up picking Walter up. And they meet Karla at a McDonald's. Between 2:30 a.m. and 7 a.m., Karla called Walter's phone over 50 times. Over 50 times she called him. From that McDonald's, Karla goes to the gas station. She goes to the gas station and she goes about her daily duties that she usually does at the gas station. And then Walter shows up, at which point he pulls a gun at Ray. Ray's in crutches, remember. He tells Ray and Karla to get to the back of the store. So they get to the back of the store and then he shoots Ray. He shoots Ray. He says that Karla's like, okay, it's done, go. And he runs, he leaves. That's when Karla calls 911.
I was black and he just come in the side door. I went out and I came in and he...
Okay, so remember Tony Fails, the one I told you about to remember. He was the second guy. Karla asked if he could find someone to kill Ray. Okay, and then he never did. He ignored her and then she moved on. Okay, well, when Karla called 911, she said that a black male had come in and run out and shot Ray.
You said a black male came into the side door.
Now, Walter Bishop is white. Tony Fails, did you guess, is black. So when the news broke and Tony Fails heard that Karla said a black person did it, he got paranoid. He thought that she was going to blame it on him because he refused to do it and he knew too much and she was saying it was a black person. So he started thinking, oh my God, she's going to pin it on me. So he went to police that day and told them, hey, you know, like she approached me first, asked me if I could find someone. I didn't. And that's when he started cooperating with police. He ended up wearing a wire and contacting Karla saying that he wanted money to keep quiet. Then she paid him at the funeral. And that's when she got arrested. Okay. So now we're at the point where Karla is arrested. Everyone that Karla conspired with basically turned on her and they were like, listen, we did this because she told us that he was abusive. Like we were trying to save her from him. So the question isn't whether Karla actually did this or masterminded it. The question is, was she justified in doing this? Was Ray abusing Karla? One friend said, quote, you would never see him without Karla. And police said that there were never any reports of abuse or domestic trouble at all. The only thing people could say could have been an issue was some tension between them about their retirement and the gas station and moving to Florida, because Ray wanted to retire and sell the gas station and move to Florida. It turns out that Karla didn't want to do that. I guess she didn't want to have like less money with the retirement. She wanted the gas station to stay open and she didn't want to move to Florida. Some people think that was actually the motive.
Maybe she just wanted more money, you know, because he had talked about retiring soon and moving to Florida.
According to Karla, the motive was that a week before they were supposed to move to Florida, he put a gun to her head and said some crazy things. So I'll read you the quote. He said, maybe I'm not even going to take you. I should just kill you now. It says Mr. Porter struck Miss Porter across her back with a crutch because he did not find her degree of sympathy towards the fact that he was bored to be satisfactory. She also said that from June 29th all the way to the day he died, she was terrified almost on a daily basis. Quote, I was in fear for my life. I knew it was getting to the point where Ray was getting out of control. I knew it was a matter of time before he killed me. Things were getting so bad. Things were just out of control. I know it was crazy. It was just a day-to-day. It wasn't even a day-to-day. It was minute to minute. Always walking on eggshells. I never could do anything on my own. Something as simple as taking a shower. It was getting so bad that I knew that Ray was going to kill me and I just wanted to kill him first. accused. Everyone in this conspiracy ended up getting arrested. And so the first one was Walter Bishop, the gunman, Shisha gunman. Well, shooter, I was trying to say shooter and gunman. I said Shisha gunman.
Defense attorney Haroon Shabazz tried to ask Karla Porter questions about the murder. Were you married to William Ray Porter? She invoked her right against self-incrimination, saying, I plead the fifth. Did you participate in a conspiracy to have William Ray Porter murdered? She again answered, I plead the fifth. Jurors also heard from Matthew Brown, who has already pleaded guilty to first-degree murder. He also invoked the Fifth Amendment when asked about his involvement in the killing.
And his was very quick because he was on camera confessing. So it took the jury less than 5 hours to find him guilty. They convicted him of first-degree murder. They could have sentenced him to death, but they ended up not doing so because they felt he had been manipulated and that he wanted like the money for his children. And that's another reason they didn't want to give him the death penalty, because he had 5 kids. So they ended up giving him life with parole. But he has to do like at least 40 years before he's up for parole. And then Karla's sister was next. Remember I told you about Karla's sister? Yeah, well, she gave the weapon, and she, by giving the weapon and knowing that this was going on, they charged her with first-degree murder. And she was also found guilty. I think she pled guilty for like some kind of plea, but she ended up getting life. And the same thing happened for her brother. Then it was the nephew. Remember Seamus Coyles, the nephew, the one who hooked her up with Walter Bishop? It was his turn.
Coyle is charged with the first-degree murder of Ray Porter, who owned this Towson gas station.
He has a lot of reasons to call his aunt and get calls from Walter Bishop. What he denies is that he was doing that with some knowledge that they were actually going to kill Ray Porter.
Well, the jury took less than 2 hours to convict Seamus Coyle of first-degree murder. Sentencing has not been set yet, but Coyle faces life with parole.
He got life too. And then it was time for Karla's trial because she pled not guilty.
Jury selection is underway for the murder-for-hire trial of Karla Porter.
Jury selection wrapped up just moments ago. Baltimore County Assistant State's Attorney Jennifer Schiffer described Karla Porter's actions. Schiffer said Karla Porter's action was every bit as deadly, every bit as lethal as Walter Bishop pulling the trigger. Schiffer said this woman cannot and should not be believed. The defense argued self-defense, claiming Karla Porter fit the profile under Maryland law of battered spouse syndrome, that she suffered from severe depressive disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder because of years of verbal and physical abuse by her husband. Prosecutors asked if the disorders or syndrome caused people to lie. The doctor said, I'm certainly sure she lied plenty of times. He said she lied to the police, she lied to me. It doesn't change my current opinion.
She says Ray was obsessed with selling the gas station and moving to Florida and blamed her for the winter snow. Again, after each example, her attorney asked, why didn't she do something? She replied, I was afraid. I was always afraid. The attorney asked, why did you have Ray killed? She said, I just felt like I needed some kind of peace. During cross-examination, prosecutors tried to plant the seeds of doubt in the jury, questioning where were all the witnesses. They also demanded why she told counselors just last month that she didn't leave Ray because she loved him and he wasn't all that bad.
Her defense went with the battered women's defense. I think it's called, battered spouse defense. And the concept was a new one because they had never applied battered wife or spouse syndrome. Sorry, I keep saying it wrong. They had never applied battered spouse syndrome to a murder for hire case. Usually it's like the person themselves who do it and they claim that they felt like they were in danger. This was a little bit different. So it was like the first of its kind in the area. Karla testified that she was being abused since she was 6 years old, that basically her mother had an abusive boyfriend and he like put her in a hot stove once and she had severe burns and her mother didn't do anything about it. And then from there, she ended up moving with her dad. And then from there, she ended up meeting Ray and she started talking about what Ray did to her. Karla detailed awful, just horrible things that, if true, are just disgusting.
We should warn you, the testimony was graphic and some may find it disturbing. Karla Porter described a pathetic Submissive life, full of abuse and humiliation. She claims that Ray came home one day with dog feces on his shoes, wiped it on her back as she was cleaning a rug that he had already messed up. And she also claims he made her drink water to the point where she soiled her clothes, then berated her for it. The constant verbal abuse included nasty curse words, while telling her she was worthless, fat, ugly, lazy, and stupid. Porter says every little thing would set Ray off. His problems and even accidents were always her fault. The physical abuse included hitting her with a wooden tailgate that she accidentally damaged, smashing lost keys into her forehead, hitting her in the back with a rake because a family puppy wouldn't come to Ray on demand. He gashed her leg with the top of a metal toolbox after he broke it, backing into a garage. She claims frustrated during hanging a curtain rod, Ray pressed a power drill into her stomach. After dumping out holy water from the River Jordan she wanted to baptize her children with, he kicked her in the side, saying now her side hurts like Jesus. After each example, her defense attorney asked, why didn't she report this to police? Why didn't she tell somebody? She says he threatened to kill her several times. While visiting her mother's gravesite, he pushed my head into the headstone and said, I should be with my dead mother. I'm worthless. No one will miss me. She got a call from Ray who said, I have a surprise for you. I'm going to kill you by smashing your head into the kitchen floor. She claims he slammed her head into the floor for 5 minutes that day. Not long before his murder, Porter says Ray pointed a gun to her head and said, no matter what, we're going to Florida and not taking the children. Maybe I will not take you and will kill you now.
Some of Miss Porter's testimony was corroborated by Porter's youngest child, Megan Porter.
Megan Porter testified her mother was being abused by her father, but pleaded the Fifth Amendment when asked if she conspired with her mother to have her father killed.
She testified that although she never saw her father strike her mother, she had seen her mother with bruises on her arms and legs and at one point with a black eye. So obviously, as you can imagine, the prosecution came out and they're like, well, why didn't you tell anyone? How come there are no reports? And then Karla said, actually, I did. There was one instance where I told a neighbor, quote, she also described pulling off the side of the road in her neighborhood where she told a neighbor that her husband had threatened to kill her and she was afraid to go home. The neighbor testified in court that Porter had told him Ray Porter threatened to kill her, which her attorney said corroborated the abuse. But prosecutors argued that he and other witnesses recalled significant details differently from Porter, raising doubts about the abuse or severity of abuse. So in the end, Karla said, bottom line, I had to kill him or he was going to kill me, and this is why. And the prosecution in the end came out and said, listen, even if everything that you say is true, you are not in immediate harm. At that time, he was on crutches, although she did say he hit her with a crutch once. They were like, you planned this meticulously, you weren't in danger at that time. And then it became a whole thing about, well, what is immediate danger? And with the whole battered spouse thing, like if you know that this is happening, you will take an opportunity when you're not in danger to do this based on all the things that have happened in the past to prove to you that this person will hurt you. And so that was like a whole debate and a whole thing. And it was time for the jury to deliberate.
Karla Porter's attorneys have argued for a conviction of voluntary manslaughter. The prosecution believes that she should be convicted of first-degree murder. The jury must decide between first-degree murder, second-degree murder, and voluntary manslaughter.
The jury, by the way, was comprised of 9 women and 3 men, in case you were wondering. And they come out with a guilty verdict.
Life in prison without parole plus 40 years.
We don't have our son. The sentence won't change that.
She's a very manipulative person, very devious. It sounds weird for us to say that maybe because she's been in our life for so long, but obviously she's lied.
Prosecutors say Karla Porter showed no remorse and there was no evidence of abuse.
Domestic violence plays a part in what actions an individual takes to get out of the marriage.
There's 2 different faces to Karla Porter. She's the cold, calculating one that she thinks nobody's looking at.
Porter's defense team plans to appeal.
It's in the bottom line. It still doesn't bring Ray back. It doesn't take our pain away. I mean, when we found out that she was involved in part and actually orchestrated this whole thing, obviously it was even harder for her. She was part of our family for 20-some years. We shared holidays, Christmases, birthdays with her. So to have this come out was just unbelievable. Not only our family, she did it to her own family. She dragged 4 family members involved into this, and she ruined their lives. along with our lives. And he was a loving father, and he loved his family, and he didn't deserve what happened to him.
She honestly has done a disservice to the true victims of domestic violence.
Karla apparently showed no emotion.
Her reaction, very little, as she was convicted of first-degree murder.
And they gave her life without parole, but then her attorneys appealed and they won the appeal. The case has been overturned and now she's going to get a new trial, but we don't have a date yet. The reason why it was appealed was there was some sort of issue with the jury instruction because it was what they call an imperfect self-defense case, and there was an issue with the instruction that it wasn't clear with the battered spouse and the imperfect self-defense and what that meant. It says here in a 4-3 ruling, so it's pretty close. It says the court said the jury was not properly instructed about what the law calls imperfect self-defense, where a defendant actually believed the force used was necessary even if not objectively reasonable. In this case, they said the jury was not properly instructed in regards to battered spouse syndrome, because the whole thing with the battered spouse syndrome is after a pattern has occurred of several times of the cycle of abuse, then it becomes rational in the battered spouse's mind that, first of all, there's no way out, like in terms of leaving them. The only way out is to neutralize the threat. They also start believing that even if not really in danger at the moment, that danger is imminent and life-threatening. They then feel like the only solution to stop everything and stop the abuse is to kill the abuser. It says, but because of the error in the jury instructions, the High Court ruled all convictions against Porter must be vacated and sent back to circuit court. Thus, we remand for a new trial on all counts. So in another interesting thing, like with the jury, how it was mostly women and they found her guilty. Well, in the Supreme Court, they were split with the votes down male to female. So like the 4 females voted to appeal and they overturned, and then the 3 men wanted to keep it and they dissented. So I thought that was interesting too, that it was like down the gender lines on the when it came to the appeal. No one cares. Like, that's so nerdy. Did you want to know the statistics of the gender? And so those are the facts. Now let's discuss the theories. The theory is more about the motive than the actual thing, because in the end Karla admitted to it. She said she did mastermind it and it was because she felt she had to. So the first thing is the theory, is she lying or is she telling the truth? Some people think she is lying, okay? And the reason why they think she's lying is because they think there's really no evidence of it. He was on crutches, so what could he have done? But then there's still that story of him. That's why some people think she made up the stories too, because in the beginning, she didn't really have specifics to tell them when she was being interrogated. She said he was just being really mean. But then when it came time for the trial, she had a lot of really graphic stories, which could just mean that, you know, it took her some time to say it. It could also mean that maybe she fabricated or exaggerated them. I don't know. That's you tell me what you think about that. I don't know. The brother, so Ray's brother said that he thinks he knows what the motive is and that this was all about money. That I guess he thinks that she thought she would get the gas station, she would be able to stay where they were and never have to go to Florida. The other thing was about the witnesses, like that there were no witnesses, there was just one neighbor. But some people feel like maybe she said that once she started planning, because she had been planning for months, so she may have felt that she needed to bring that up at some point. Other people are like, no, a lot of people get abused and they don't tell anyone, and then they die and it's done and it's over. You know, like, it's not everyone who speaks out about it. Some people really do feel like she did speak out about it though. She told her nephew, she told her brother, she told her sister, her daughter said she had a black eye. Like, what are you talking about? She didn't tell anyone. They're like, well, there's no witnesses. But it's like, okay, well, of course, which abuser abuses when they're witnesses? They do it behind closed doors. Some people don't call the police because they think it's going to be worse. The police are not really going to neutralize the threat. The threat comes back and they end up dead. So I feel like the fact that she didn't report the abuse doesn't negate the fact that the abuse happened. The fact that there are no witnesses, same thing. It doesn't sway me either way. What I think helps Karla's case is that her daughter said she saw that, like a black eye and bruising. It's like, where would that come from? Did she hit herself? You know what I mean? Maybe she felt that him being on crutches, them moving to Florida, and maybe him isolating her from her friends and family, because she did say that that was the motive, was her feeling like he was going to take her away from her support system and move her to Florida, further isolate her, and then she would really have no help. Now he's on crutches. She saw this as the perfect opportunity and that she had no choice. They're going to move now. She's got to do it now. People bring up the crutches again, like he was on crutches. Like, could he really have been doing all this to her? But then it's like, if he had a gun, he totally could have been terrorizing her even while he was on crutches. It's hard to know what really happened between Karla and Ray. The only person who may have known is the daughter, and she seemed to side with Karla. So that kind of leans more towards Karla's telling the truth. But then people are like, well, if she's a master manipulator, of course she can manipulate her daughter. And her dad is dead. Like, all she has is her mom. Why would she turn on her mom? So it's really just tough and actually very tragic for the daughter when you flesh it out and think about it. And then there's also a third option here, which is, what if it's somewhere in the middle? You know, that's where I'm always thinking in my mind. I'm like, what if he was doing some things? What if he did do some of the things? Maybe not everything, but most things, some things. What if she felt like she was mad at him for doing that, but this was also an opportunity to get the gas station, to do this. And so maybe she exaggerated to the people around her to get rid of him. Maybe she didn't feel so bad about it because maybe he was bad to her in some ways. The prosecution's argument kind of says it doesn't matter if Ray was abusing Karla. He wasn't a threat in that moment. She planned this. This was cold and calculated. There was a financial motive. She probably lied about the whole thing anyway, but even if she didn't, it still doesn't excuse what she did. And that's where the imperfect self-defense comes into play, which was bungled up with the instruction. And so we'll see what another jury thinks about this. I would love to know what you guys think about this. If you ask me what I think, I don't know. I really don't know. Like, I can't say she wasn't abused. You know what I mean? Like, I can't say that. I don't know. At the same time, I kind of agree with the prosecution of, like, if you could plan this type of killing and have him go and get out of the house and fake an alarm, you could plan your escape. Right? And you're telling all these people, you told your brother, your sister, they're getting a gun, they're getting him in. Why don't they just pull you out of there and move you somewhere to a safe house? You know? But then comes in the whole rational thing of, like, did she feel that was an option? Then comes in the battered spouse syndrome. So it's a lot. It's going to be a battle of the experts, I feel like, and the credibility of her and the witnesses and all that kind of stuff. So I'm torn. You know, that doesn't happen often, but it does happen. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys think. And thank you to the sponsor as well. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.